Hi, I'm Catherine.
And I'm Gail, and welcome to Women Over 70, Aging Reimagined, our award-winning weekly podcast. Please visit womenover70.com and consider membership in Aging Reimagined Circle. Become a sponsor and mark your calendar now to attend our symposium in Chicago area on October 19th, 2024. Please join us in continuing to inspire women to age with curiosity, courage, and creativity.
And today we're delighted to be talking with Pamela Meyer. She is our advocate for women aging. So Dr. Pamela Meyer is the author of 5 books, a worldwide consultant and keynote speaker, as well as a college teacher. Three themes, agility, innovation, and learning, are central to her work. Her recent book, Staying in the Game, Leading and Learning with Agility for a Dynamic Future, and you see it on the screen, won the 2023 Indie Award for Best Book in the Leadership category. As a business agility expert, Pamela works with leaders, teams, and organizations that need to be more agile and innovative to compete in a rapidly changing world. As an educator, for 2 decades, Pamela taught business agility, organizational change, and adult learning at DePaul University in Chicago. So Staying in the Game is an apt metaphor for Pamela's work, as well as for her passionate pursuit of amateur ski racing. She's a 4-time NASCAR national gold medalist. And today's conversation with Pamela will center on how key elements of staying in the game can be applied to older women as we strive to remain curious, creative, and always learning. So welcome, Pamela, to Women Over 70 as an advocate for women aging.
Oh, thank you. It is such an honor to be with you and speak with your wonderful audience.
Thank you. So when I read your manuscript of Staying in the Game, I was struck with how you use ski racing as a metaphor for agile leadership and staying in the game as a metaphor for being innovative in the game of life. So when you wrote the book for a business audience, but I immediately recognized the relevance for older women who want to remain agile, innovative, learning. And so this is what we've invited you to talk with us about today. So Pamela, why don't you just start by giving us a thumbnail sketch of what the book is about, kind of the what and the why of that title.
Yes, absolutely. So the book came about actually because I had been working with leaders across industries and on the focus of making an agility shift, which was the title of my last book. And I noticed that once they'd made this initial shift, so many of them started drifting back to their comfort zones. And at the same time, I was returning to a metaphor, or rather, no, I was returning to, not a metaphor, to a passion from my youth, downhill skiing and downhill racing. And when I got back into ski racing, I was afraid I was going to be one of the oldest people out there and I wouldn't fit in. And turned out I was one of the youngest, and I was meeting people in their 60s, 70s, even 80s that had been in it for decades and were still out there year after year, weekend after weekend. And that made me so curious. And the curiosity spread over to the business clients I was working with. So in some ways, the idea of staying in the game and the mountain and ski racing became a metaphor for the other questions I was grappling with. But you're absolutely right, Catherine. So many of the themes cut across any of the domains where we express our curiosity and want to stay engaged and continuing to learn. So I'm excited to share some of the lessons I've learned from this research and I would say front row seat that I've had in the last several years pursuing these questions.
Yeah, excellent. So were you going to tell us a little bit about why this metaphor has become so important to you personally?
Yeah, certainly ski racing itself and being out on the mountain or the hill in the Midwest, for me, it stretches me in so many ways. I mean, there's the physical challenge, the mental challenge. Conditions are always changing, so it's not like some sports, maybe track, for example, or sports where the playing field doesn't change. I mean, and even from the start of the race to the time it's your turn to run the course can change. So the course you inspected is not the course that you end up racing on. So that requires you to be so absolutely, completely present in the moment with an agile mindset and ready for anything. And that puts an emphasis on preparing both physically and mentally and continuing to learn and adapt. And then adapt as, equipment changes, all kinds of things are changing. And the lessons that I learned along the way about people who are staying in it and share this passion, to me, spread across so many domains. So skiing and the mountain truly is just a metaphor, because I know that's a fairly small percentage of people that share this particular passion. But one of the things I discovered was that these leaders, whether they're on the mountain or in the workplace, all are highly attuned not just to themselves, but to what I came to call the game. And the game consists of an opportunity for us to experience play, to express or discover our purpose, to experience passion, and a certain amount of pleasure. And those 4 Ps, as I call them, really do become the most compelling aspect. And because people have discovered it, or perhaps discover it by accident, there's something so compelling about that they want to stay in it. And those are some of the things that certainly became true for me and true for so many of the people I interviewed over the last 5 years and have skied and raced with.
I think Gail would agree that play, purpose, passion, pleasure are themes that we hear over and over again from our women that we talk with for our podcast. And we may have to steal that from you, because it's very appropriate.
Yes, please do. And I see it cuts across work life, personal life, and so there were 4 other dynamics that I discovered that really were fairly consistent across all of the people that I interviewed, and I see examples of it day in and day out in the workplace and other leaders I work with. So I thought I'd do a quick overview of those 4 dynamics, and we can open it up to maybe a richer conversation, or feel free to stop me along the way. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think Gail, do you have something you want to?
Oh, yes, please.
No, I wanted you to describe what each element means. And I think that's a great thing to do.
Yeah, excellent. So it started with something that I came to call meaningful identity, which really is at the center of these other 3 dynamics. And as I was interviewing people and asking them about, what motivates you to stay in this day in and day out, and, sometimes in all kinds of conditions, and to keep preparing in a way that you can stay in this game. And the most consistent answer I got, and I heard this unprompted from a number of people, they simply said, it's who I am. And that meant that the experience of participation was so connected to their identity and what gives their life meaning. They almost couldn't separate participating and engaging and co-creating that experience from who they are. And so that became central. And that sense of meaningful identity, or what gives our life meaning and purpose, doesn't happen in a vacuum. And I'm sure this will resonate with you and the hundreds of women you've interviewed. So it happens probably first and foremost in community. And this is just a shot of my wonderful community on a typical weekend at Wilmot Mountain up in Wisconsin, but it happens on race hills big and small across the country in the winter months. And community is the camaraderie and experience of belonging that we have when we participate. And what's interesting is that not only is it a chance for us to experience our meaningful identity, often that meaningful identity starts coming to life in community when we start feeling like we're being seen and we're seeing and being appreciated and valued and have a true sense of belonging connected to this experience of passion. So it becomes kind of amplifying. The more we participate in community, the more our meaningful identity grows, and we're also play an active part in co-creating that community. And so that really is a critical place that I would say, especially on, you can see this image represents a foggy Saturday morning where people could have been happy to stay home and stay in bed. And it's that sense of community and camaraderie that often will get them out there more than anything else. But it's also, and actually I wanted to pause there and see if that's a theme that you've heard consistently in with some of the women that you've been interviewing. Does that resonate?
That reminds me of one of our guests, Bindi Bitterman, who moved to a senior facility and thought, never in my life did I want to do that. And once she got there, her husband had died a little bit back. And once she got there, she realized that new friends, a whole new community can really make a difference in your excitement of living.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's truly how our sense of self comes to life. And sometimes we discover capacities and elements that we didn't even know we had when we start seeing them reflected back to us. And that became so critical. And Catherine, one of the things, as you know, I write about in the book is a discovery we made through some of our research at DePaul of, we were exploring it through some collaborative inquiry. When do you know you're experiencing community? And one of the things that we found that cut across all kinds of communities, whether it was a sense of community in the workplace or your morning yoga group or knitting group, was that people will miss you when you're gone, or people miss you when you're not there and might ask about you or follow up. And that to me is such a simple statement, but it's such a hallmark because it means your presence has been noticed. You've contributed in a way that you truly are missed when you're not there. And that to me really made a big impact on how I show up in community. I know that it's important that truly if I notice somebody's not there, that I reach out to them and, check in on them or say, we missed you, because that sense of being missed sometimes is all someone needs to come back the next time or make the extra effort and know that they're missed when they're not there. So it cuts both ways. It's not just about how we experience community, but how we co-create it and our responsibility in being sure other people have that experience of community.
We see that in our Aging Reimagined Circle, our membership group, who has monthly programs on Zoom. And so over time now, people have gotten to know each other, and they will say, oh, where's Shirley? Or I don't see Joyce today. Or, is Judy coming? And a lot of times people will write, let us know, I'm sorry, I can't come. And, we really want to be sensitive to not to shame them for that coming, but just to say, you'll be missed.
Yeah.
And community is so much what the Women Over 70 is all about, is creating community and our age groups having a place to belong.
Yes, absolutely. And it becomes more and more critical as we age. These are things that we can't necessarily take for granted, the things that just come with showing up in a set workplace or being part of a family or neighborhood system may be shifting. And so it becomes even more important. So this is critical. And that leads right into the next dynamic that I discovered, which is the experience of competition. And people might at first balk at this word and say, oh, wait a minute, I'm not competitive, or that doesn't have meaning for me. But here's what I discovered is that competition is really more than anything about continuous learning and improvement. And that's why I put these two images up on the slide here. One is me at the top of the podium at a national competition. It feels great to win. It feels great to be at the top and to compete. But those are fleeting moments. And so this image on the other side is really what it's all about. And this is our little race hill at Wilmot Mountain on a kind of crummy weather day. But what you're seeing is the racers, after they've finished their run, they're at the bottom of the hill, looking back up the hill to see, what could I do better, or what, and they're watching the other racers come down. And I swear, no matter the age, whether you're 22 or 82, I have seen racers, as soon as they come through that finish area, they turn back up the mountain and think, what could I do better? You know what? On my next run, I know what I'm going to change. And that is so compelling because it keeps people in the game. It keeps people wanting to come back out, to go to training sessions, to learn more, because there's always a sense that I can do better next time. And here's what I love, and this is true of everybody, and I've interviewed people well into their 80s who say, I don't think I've yet had my best run. And they're not saying that they could compete with the 20-year-olds, but truly they think they can do better than they did last weekend or last run, and that's what keeps them coming back. And so I know this is a theme that's run through a number of your podcasts is, this is what keeps people in the game, is staying curious, continuing to learn. So it doesn't matter whether it's a hobby, a professional endeavor, a new culture. What is it that you're passionate about that is piquing your curiosity? And this is why this is absolutely connected in community, that, who shares that curiosity? Where can you find other people to learn with or learn from, or share what you've learned? And so this became a really critical component as well.
You're talking our language there, Pamela.
Yeah, well, good. I had a feeling this would resonate, and it gets even better. I can go on, or wanted to pause and see if there's any other connections the two of you want to make.
I was thinking about just a bit ago. You'd mentioned play, and that is we've categorized our podcast in different major themes, and play is one of them. We haven't had many people that just sort of fit in perfectly in the play category. But the way you're talking about it makes me think that play is much larger than having fun, which is great. But I was thinking about work, and we had to talk about, oh my God, you're still working. Oh, this sounds like work. And I say, it's not. Okay, I'm not going to argue about your meaning of work, but it's really meaningful play.
Exactly. Oh, I love that term. And, as you know, I did my doctoral research around play and improvisation. And one of the things I discovered is that, and I coined this frame, play space, in the context of work. And I always said and continue to say that I'm not talking about the funny hats and games kind of play. I'm talking about the space we co-create to play with new ideas, to play new roles and experiment with new capacities and new ways of thinking and being, and to create space even for play in the system, for us to experiment with new ways. And so play, in Western culture has gotten a bad rap, and there's a long history of that from, all kinds of religious and other philosophical threads. But I truly think, regardless of what your current life circumstances is, to think about your space as a space for play, to play with this experience of continuous learning and experimentation, and to discover new capacities or new roles you might be playing at whatever stage you are in your life. And that's, of course, what I see happening on the mountain. It's part of the playfulness that may happen, at the bar afterwards, or even in the start gate, the kind of trash talking that happens is a kind of playing, that playfulness is often where we stop taking ourselves so seriously and start having room to experiment a little bit more. And I remember when I was doing early research on innovation and play space, I came across a lab director at a very, important, research lab, who said he always knew his scientists were onto something when he would start hearing laughter coming down the hallway. And just that sense they were starting to be in this space of surprise and the giddiness that comes with that. So, I really encourage people to think about what are the spaces, experiences, communities that you have where you experience that, or where you have permission to. And then also think about, how can you be someone who gives other people permission? Because often it takes just a little bit. And after years of facilitating and teaching improvisation, I've discovered even the most conservative appearing group, just giving them a little bit of permission and some guidelines. And it's pretty easy to unleash some playfulness.
Yes, I've been in groups with you where you do some things that I thought, oh, this is never going to work, and it just was wonderful, just breaking open people's reservations, and we're all in kind of the same playing field, and that was great. Gail, do you have are you sitting there with a question or a comment?
I was just thinking how much I learned from you when you were my teacher, Pamela, at DePaul University. And some of the activities you did, I use today with my clients.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I was learning from you too, Gail. And I mean, truly, both of you are such great examples and mentors or peer mentors to me of what it means to create this space and continue the intentionality, which actually let me move into this next dynamic, because I think it really fits in as an extension of this conversation. So we express our meaningful identity and co-create it through community, and that community creates a framework and a holding space for continuous learning and improvement. And then that is where I found the last dynamic to really come into play, which is commitment, which is the intentionality and prioritization of the experience and of our meaningful identity and all of the practices that it takes to continue to stay engaged. And I share another picture of the parking lot of Wilmot Mountain. I'm actually heading there this coming Saturday to cheer on my fellow racers. And what you may not notice is the dashboard there is reading -2 degrees. And believe me, that's not the coldest day we've raced on. And when we're racing, we're in our race suits, which are just fairly thin Lycra suits with maybe a pair of long underwear underneath. So it takes some real commitment to get out there on those days. And I wanted to share a quote from one of my favorite racers that is a true fantastic member. I know, Catherine, you and I have even talked about having Lilla Andrews on. Lilla actually is 83 this year and longtime ski racer. She said that as speaking to commitment, I think mindset is probably a good 75% of almost anything you do. I think that it's huge. You have the ability, but if you don't have the drive or the will to build on it, what good is the ability? I'm just going out to do it. Never quit. And in fact, Lilla at this very moment is on her way to Italy to compete in the World Masters Games. And, she continues to ski in all disciplines, including downhill. And I have had the honor of skiing with her and being in race camps with her, and talk about someone who's still learning. Her entire conversation on the chairlift back up is, as we're looking down at the course from above, is, oh yeah, I took that gate a little wide. I'm working on that. So it's just such an inspiration to be with people who are continuing to prioritize this. And I also want to say something that really came up when talking about commitment is it's not a set it and forget it endeavor. I mean, because commitment, we all know conditions change, and it might be, health reasons, injury. I'm sidelined right now myself because of an injury. So we reprioritize as conditions change, or maybe our interests change, or the venue, or any other, number of concerns, life circumstances. So it's not that if the game that we were experiencing all of the joy and the 4 Ps from goes away, then we're suddenly out of luck. It's that we reprioritize. And this is what I see again and again. And I write about so many leaders on and off the race hill who talk about what it means to continually adapt. But the point is that it's an intentional practice, and it's a practice of prioritization and reprioritization.
Well, everything you're saying fits so perfectly with what we hear from our podcast guests, concerns that, as when you're talking about changing conditions, I mean, that is certainly the life of women over 70.
Yep.
we may be leaving full-time employment. Maybe we're our spouse or our partner has died, or we're moving into a different community setting. Those things, and people have a sense that when you get to be a little older, things just sort of go, that is so far from the truth. It is constantly changing conditions. And so these other things, the identity, the community, that sense of internal motivation are all so important.
Even a physical injury, as you were saying, makes you have to, as you said, reprioritize.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly I've experienced it this past year, in an accident that I had that, you have choices when you have a setback or when conditions change. And I've certainly learned a lot of lessons from people who talked about, and there's a whole chapter in the book about coming back from setbacks and staying resilient. And so much of that is about regrouping and focusing on where things are moving, tapping back into community and meaningful identity, and sometimes looking for other places to express them.
So I just I'm impressed with. So I've known you for many, many years, and I've always, my heart sort of stops when you go to your races. But this is the first time that I think that you've had a serious injury since I've known you, and it's been really inspiring in terms of how you have dealt with this process of coming back, getting yourself ready to come back, but not focusing entirely on, I've got to get back to the race course. It is, you've gone to Morocco, you joined a yoga community, you've been finding ways, other creative ways to stay engaged. And do you want to say anything about?
Yeah. I mean, certainly bring up that fateful day this past spring that and interestingly, I had just submitted the manuscript for Staying in the Game, and then a few days later, training on a race course at about 40 miles an hour, I caught an edge and blew out my knee in ways that sometimes say only Lindsey Vonn and a few other folks can relate to, and literally, I have been joking that while I'm not an academic, I do have a PhD, so I believe in rigorously testing my ideas, and this might have been taking it a little too far, but what I can say is that I truly had to lean into, in those months of recovery, and I'm still, in the home stretch of recovery before I can get back out there. Yeah, I tapped into community. I had to really reevaluate and review my meaningful identity. Interestingly, I was doing final edits on the book, so I had a chance to truly be kicking the tires on these ideas and chance to practice what I was communicating. And all of these components, it was an opportunity to learn more about my body and recovery and to learn how to come back stronger. But as you say, in the meantime, I didn't stop everything else I was doing. I looked at where things were moving in my life and where opportunities were. And of course, the first couple of months I was fairly laid up. So that was from the, the confines of my couch and, my physical therapy sessions. But as I became more ambulatory and I truly looked at where those opportunities are. And this year, as you mentioned, rather than going to race camp, I had the opportunity to jump into a yoga retreat that my wife was going to in Morocco, and ended up being something I might have missed, had I not been injured. So in a weird way, I truly look back on the last 9 months or so since my serious injury as one of the best stretches of times. I had so many opportunities to keep learning and growing and making new discoveries. And yes, I had down days, and I'm not suggesting it wasn't, and still isn't at times, challenging, especially now, this time of year is when everybody's posting, races are starting up again, and I'm but I'm going out to support my fellow racers. I'm not staying out of the community until I can be back on the race hill. I want to stay in it. And, I have a responsibility to co-create and be part of it, even when I can't actually be out there competing. And I think about that as a metaphor for all of the ways that any of us, we're life is about setbacks and comebacks, and just like any good, movie or made for TV drama, it's not the setback that's interesting. It's the comeback story. And so I'm having a chance to live that myself, but I truly feel like that's also a metaphor for all of the ways that we're continually learning and adapting as conditions change, as we age, as people are still working, as our industries change, as the geopolitical environment changes, our communities change. I mean, if we're not in a space of a mindset of learning and adapting, just like Lila said, mindset is everything, and that's the place to start. And if we're stuck, very often it means going back to our mindset and regrouping there, or tapping back into the community that gives us energy, regrouping with where we're curious, where we might want to keep learning and growing, and then revisiting our priorities, and then just think about the next thing that we could do that might get things rolling again. Is it attending one community meeting, or searching out a new community? Is it finding one learning resource? So those are certainly some really huge lessons that I've learned. So in many ways, I'm not sure I'm ready to say I'm grateful for the injury, but certainly I'm grateful for the lessons and that have come from it.
Well, you have offered us many, many lessons, and this is just you're just speaking to our audience, to us and to our audience, in such a powerful, helpful way. So, Pamela, thank you so much for being with us. This has been a real treat.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you both. And you're certainly role models for staying in the game for me. So it's been a pleasure to continue that process with you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, and listeners, because of your loyalty, you're staying in the game, our numbers continue to grow. And still, we need your support. Visit womenover70.com, join Aging Reimagined Circle, or make a donation. And let your voice be heard and help change the conversation about women aging.
Thank you. Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.